Greetings, beloved, and welcome to The Art of, a series of podcasts dedicated to exploring what goes into doing creative and spiritual work with excellence. I'm your host, Reverend Linda Furtado, Director of Spirituality and Arts at Scarritt Bennett Center, and today we are going to listen to a live recording right here on our campus in Nashville, Tennessee, of two featured poets from our Poets Corner event. We have these on a regular cycle, and it is a gift to have had these two artists, and since we are listening to a recording, I'll go ahead and click play and hope you enjoy the art of poetry today.
Greetings, beloveds, and welcome to Poets Corner. It is always a gift and a grace to be able to offer this to our community as we come together to live out our mission here at Scarritt Bennett Center. If you don't know who I am, I'm Reverend Linda Furtado, and I direct spirituality and arts programming, and we exist here at Scarritt Bennett to create space where individuals and groups engage each other to achieve a more just world. And what better way to do that than through the arts? We are here to explore the power of words and creativity and the lives behind the poetry. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with and inviting forward our two incredible poets, Brenda Butka and Julie Sumner, both of whom bring a unique blend of experience, reflection, and artistry to their work. Brenda, a retired physician, has spent a lifetime weaving poetry with keen observation, her work capturing the quiet moments of gardens, patience, and the passage of time. And Julie, a former critical care nurse and educator, explores poetry as a path to resilience, with her chapbook, Meridian, recently winning the Convergence Chapbook Contest. Thank you both for being here today. And with that, I'll ask them to come and share anything else they would like about themselves to get started as they take turns and share some poetry this evening. Let's celebrate them as they come forward today.
Yes, Julie is in the Age Before Beauty camp and pushed me up here. So anyway, we're so glad you're here. And that's about all we're going to say. We're just going to plunge right in. This is called A Drab Morning in Winter, Bleak with News and Rain. In this cup of morning, steam rises from the creek, surrounded by coffee-colored hills, straw and rust, sparrows invisible as nails driving through the weeds with tiny clicks. It's all metal and mud and wet hay. Summer's leftovers, copper, a bit of old rain like hammered silver in the folds of the driveway, collaged from smoke and pebble, muddy boot strings and shivering mist. I'm not sure why I am so happy, listening to the fat rows of onion starts we moved from their cardboard boxes yesterday afternoon in a slot of sunshine, lying peacefully on their sides, tucked in for now, whispering, "The dirt smells like coffee." The black and white dogs listening also. We watch the damp rustle of twigs, waiting. It's all rust, really. Oxygen and water used up by time, the black rust of tree trunks. Even the cottonwood's white feet are dipped in it. Pink pasture grass and sedge, purple furrows and cutaways, and lichen the green of rusted copper dabbed on fence rails and crabapple trees. This cup of morning is our tiny world, where the news is that the breech calf who yesterday smelled like blood, like rusty blood, is nursing well, that the tractor tire is up and running again, and my neighbor comes at 3 to help put up the pantry shelves. We know perfectly well in our cup of morning, full of the colors of rust, where rotten things smell like a promise of spring. We know perfectly well the raging world, its anguish, where rust is nothing but old machinery and death. We know perfectly well that the bobwhite who used to whistle with the sparrows is gone, and that a row of onions will not save the world, and that repairing the fence will not fix despair. But it is where we sit in this cup of morning, what is to hand, what we have to do. We live out in the country. Bell's Bend Farm was started on our property. I don't want anyone here to think that I'm an actual farmer, but I am farm adjacent. And we have actually at least one of our actual farmers back there. Caroline has been one of the farmers on the property. And that does inform a lot of my work, but not all of it. And the world informs much of it. I'm going to read a couple more and then turn it over to Julie, and we'll just pass things back and forth that way. This is called Apocalypse, and it's the idea of Humpty Dumpty, okay? Apocalypse. This is when things go really bad. We are all there when Humpty Dumpty falls. He is falling now. The wall is there, a dimming sun and dry grass, and all the king's men, startled, saying, "Oh," arms flung out. Starlings chitter in the trees, and we can see exactly where this is going. Arms flung out. No one's going to catch this guy. It's all going to come apart. Paparazzi, their faceted green eyes, saying, just, "Oh," their arms flung out. All the king's horses, mouthing the dry grass, they say nothing. Poor Humpty. Will there ever be another so very like? Just another way of looking at the tragic events of the world. So this poem is called O Chronos Bastardos, which was graffiti that I found on a bench at the foot of the Acropolis on a trip to Greece. And I asked my Greek-speaking friend and guide what O Chronos Bastardos meant, and we kind of couldn't figure it out other than that bastard time, okay? And just as a reminder, we all are aware of the Parthenon, as Nashvillians were particularly aware of the Parthenon. But towards the bottom of the hill is Mars Hill, where Paul stood and preached. And around to the side, a little further down, are caves where the cult of Aphrodite and Pan, those cults were worshipped. So it's not just about the Parthenon. It's about Paul, Mars Hill, and the cult of Aphrodite. So this is O Chronos Bastardos, Greek graffiti on a bench at the Acropolis. And I hope bastard is an okay word here, Linda. It's okay, okay. Time, that slick bastard, catches us on the cusp of the mountain. Pan's cave vibrating below. His goaty feet still tap dancing up the marble steps in the stone light like honey in air. Young men strung along the path gazing at their girls, coy, posing in the wind, coquettish hands on hips, hats and sunglasses tipped into the sun, and Aphrodite shimmers, all the prettier for her thousands of years. Clicks the photo button. They lean towards each other, cute, smile for the computer on the selfie stick. Check. All they see is each other. All they will take home are images of each other, innocent idols on vacation, an evasion of time, unaware that time, that slippery bastard, drops his spells here and everywhere, reminds Pericles every day that perfection is hardly forever. Cheers on Paul's wrecking ball of sin and redemption, shouted from the same hill. We sit on ancient stones, security wallets hanging under our clothes, while time, that cheap bastard, squanders his millennia on that ingrate Apollo and cannot spare for any of us an extra day. Thank you. Julie. And we'll just go back and forth until time, that cheap bastard, runs out.
Dang him. Hello, my name is Julie Sumner, and I'd like to start with a few poems from my chapbook, Meridian. And these poems compose about 10 years worth of work, so there's a big change in style from throughout the book. So I'll just begin with my apology for writing things by hand. This is handwritten. Write the word light. See how your thumb and index finger wave as flashes on the surface of moving water, muscles, ligaments, tendons bobbing, as the I is dotted, the T is crossed, and somewhere in the forest of nerves, that one particular strike of lightning spiders across your interior night, shining through every particle of your own shadowed body. A lot of my poems have to do with observations I made when I was a nurse. I was a nurse for many years at Vanderbilt Hospital, and it just trains you to be an observer and to never stop looking at the world. And many of my poems arise just out of the observational eye. Even if I'm reading something, it's easy for me to picture it in my mind, even as a scientific article, and think, well, what's the human component behind that? So this poem was a series inspired by science articles I got in my email inbox. This poem is called Girl Child. There's a word in there that you might not be familiar with called gravid, which is another word for pregnant. Girl Child. The epigraph reads, 10,000 years ago, a group of hunter-gatherers buried an infant girl in an Italian cave with a rich selection of their treasured beads and pendants, showing that even the youngest females were recognized as full persons in their society. Science Daily, December 14th, 2021. The fossil of you was found like a shard of sand dollar trapped in an eon of sand. A jagged signpost that gestured toward the small, undiscovered country of your only life. Were you the one who smiled early, passed from knee to knee around the fire, the firstborn child of the patient daughter, the pink talisman for better hunting next moon? Did you clutch and cling on the shell-smooth beads worn first by your clan, now your own, adorned as you were to enter the unknown? Many things here have changed. The world grows warmer. The world has grown louder. The world groans. But our language for losing a child is still ashes, and our word for grief comes from the same word as gravid, each something to be born. And to follow that, I have a poem about embryo adoption. I hate poetry readings where everything just kind of goes downhill. So I'll bring you down and then I'll bring you back up again. So, this poem is embryo adoption. Where was your soul, love? Those years that you were held, embryonic yet whole, the overflow of a generous pair of others, waiting icebound and unknown. Did it hover near the ceiling like a breath suspended in the cold, or swing and swirl in the lab's blue light like a feather caught and windblown? Now here you are, blue-eyed and blinking, chirping and gurgling, a raspberry stuck on your thumb like a cap. You find the berry, find your thumb, find delight as the berry tumbles into your baby bird mouth. Your soul, love, is held within you now, even as I hold you on my lap. And I'll read one more and then give it back to you. Is that good? Okay. This poem is about a very dear patient of mine, probably the only person I ever went to visit in her home. That's really something that you don't really do in the medical world, but she was dear to me, and it took me about 20 years before I could write about her. The things we ask. Of all the things she could have asked, for a sip of water, for another pain pill, for a reason why her transplant failed, the yellow woman lying in her bed asked only if I could pray for her. What could I say? The unsayable now passed between us, a newborn absence, a knowledge of her impending end, leaving us both untethered, beyond reason, astronauts forgotten, left behind by their ship. United in this outer space, we began to pray, cold words sparking into flames of despair, of hope, the way a meteor descending ignites in the atmosphere, unearthly light widening the sky for miles.
Thank you, Julie. I have a lot of poems that are medical based, but I am just not reading them tonight. I picked random things that are different. And one of the more interesting things I have done in the medical world, I was invited to the University of Florida Medical School for a couple of years running to do a poetry workshop with medical students, which was quite interesting because they go, well, why poetry? And then at the end, they're like, this is something. And part of it is the attention you pay to different things. And sometimes I think of it as making small things big, so you see them, making really big things small, so you can cope with them. So this first one is a little odd. Well, they're all a little odd. This is called Subliminal. And a few years ago, I don't know how many of you remember, on 31st Avenue, is it? That goes, there was a sign about a bail bond advertisement. And owned by a woman, downtown, well-known, very capable. Yes, Cynthia's back there going like, and that's it. She's in a tight pink dress, very skimpy, ready to help you post bail. So that's what this is about. Subliminal. Her name is Leah. She owns the bail bond on Union Street downtown. The bus stop ad wants you to call. Here's her number. Her long blonde hair glittering, her smile. So maybe that all works so well with the judge, or not. And you bail skip, you can dream of the chase, panting in her tight pink dress. Deep down, we all want to be caught. Or maybe that dress, barely containing what it is meant to contain, purely suggests confinement, longing for release, the very real possibility any minute now. So we poets are serious people. I just want you to know that. But I do have some travel poems in here, and we just heard one about Greece. This is called Pilgrims in Trouble Now, or Deconstructing Drinks in Ambos Mundos, Havana. So we went to Cuba a few years ago, and of course, everyone has to go if they're in Havana to have some drinks in Hemingway's favorite bar. And Ambos Mundos means both worlds. So Pilgrims in Trouble Now, or Deconstructing Drinks in Ambos Mundos, Havana. Pilgrims are gone extinct, even here, where palm fronds rattle beside the balcony. Stories of the wandering years, adventures taking us to a rueful wisdom or revolution or sainthood. These tales are only spoken in faded languages in huddled rooms. The narrative thread has frayed and broken. The novel is dead, and so is the old man. Only sometimes unkempt longing uncurls itself, walks its 1,000 tiny claws along the hallways of my heart. Before I can weep or rage or pack, it's curled up again, inert as a stone, in the lower left-hand corner of myself. There is a reason why all of us sit at the bar in Hemingway's hotel with a 7-year-old rum, maybe a cigar. And then, a few years ago, on July 3, there was this weird conspiratorial rumor going around that the Democrats were going to start a violent revolution on July 4. And so I had to write a manifesto for that revolution, okay? Manifesto. Before the revolution, later today, I must admire the chiffon sky, read a story and the weather report, feed the fish, find a card for a thank you note before the revolution, later today. Diane tends her tomatoes and zinnias, announced by her little dog. The cows slouch lazily toward the barn, hooves scuffling along the gravel. Before the revolution, later today, Chris straightens up, hitches his jersey shorts, wipes his hands on a rag. The old Volkswagen engine may be one step closer to kicking over. Before the revolution, later today, the clematis and the shrub rose need water. My feet are muddy, and everything everywhere has weeds, which, before the revolution, must be scolded, pulled, and thrown over the fence. Before the revolution, later today, comrades, we fold the clothes, talk about dinner. Someone just happens to be driving by and stops for a drink. And our neighbor brings his grandbaby, her dark eyes watching. I'm going to read one more little one. Okay, are we okay? How are we doing time-wise? I keep watching that. Oh, there's a clock back there, too. We're good. Kitchen. And this features a coracle, which I like because it reminds me of the word cor, which is Latin for heart. But a coracle is a round, woven, shallow boat. It's like a shallow basket about this big. And they have them in Wales and in England and in India and all over the world, essentially. They're used in rivers and slow-flowing places for fishing. So usually one person, that's a coracle. And in this poem is called Kitchen. So my kitchen table, which is round, I thought of it as a coracle. Kitchen. Frail coracle, this basket of light cupped around the table. We discussed the storm, the depth of water, the path opening towards sunrise, told the same old stories, wove new ones from the fragile threads of daylight and dark, traveled through the trembling night, rowing together toward morning, a handful of whiskey lighting the way, speckled like a glass of stars. We came in and went out, sat in this frail coracle of my heart, woven of sticks, circling. Such a slender place to dwell. So small, we should not still be afloat on this unimaginable sea.
I love the word coracle. I'm going to have to start using it now in everyday conversation. It's such a great image. I'd like to read for you some of my newer poems, which are prose poems, and they are, what is a prose poem? I'll tell you. Okay, it looks like prose, but when I read it, my goal is for it to sound like a poem based on the rhythms and the imagery that you hear. And I started doing this about 3 years ago, and I kind of couldn't let go, but I'm finished now. So I've let go. And I'd like to read these for you. They're inspired by verses from the Old Testament, which is so rich to me. And also, when I look around today, it kind of feels like we're in the Old Testament again sometimes, which also I think is valid. So the first pair is actually from the same verse, and they're paired as laments and praises, which seemed very important to me. There's a very wonderful writer by the name of Walter Brueggemann who talks about the goal of people of faith, particularly the Christian faith, if you are a poet or a prophet, that your goal should be to lament and praise. And so this was the pattern for this series of poems that I did. And I'll begin, like I said, this is a lament and praise, but it's based off the same verse, which I think is really amazing about verses from the scriptures, because they speak to so many different situations. A lament for choosing darkness. The epigraph is from Psalm 139, verses 11 and 12. If I ask darkness to cover me and light to become night around me, that darkness would not be dark to you. Night would be light as day. I call the darkness by another name. I call it a safe shield against the glaring light of reality. I dab the darkness over the bags beneath my eyes, over my cheeks that sag, and call it concealer. I call the darkness shadow and brush it into a painted landscape full of life around my dying eyes. Shade my lips with a brighter pink, and you will never know what I truly think. And now I just call it makeup, and now I'm all made up. My imagined face is the one I choose to reveal to the light. Meanwhile, in darkness, like a finely sewn shroud, my face that is real accepts her fate. Though alive, she is already in a tomb that's been sealed. Praise for the tenacity of light. Psalm 139, verses 11 and 12. If I ask darkness to cover me and light to become night around me, that darkness would not be dark to you. Night would be light as day. The light is just like that, isn't it? Getting into everything. See how it army crawls under the bedroom door to crack open your sleep, or how it filters innocent as dew through the closed blinds of your window, or how night after clear night it repels down from Alpha Centauri or Orion or Mars. You can't keep it out, like pollen or dust or even glitter, the worst. There's just no escaping. You could hurl yourself off the continental shelf and shroud yourself in some benthic layer abyss. But even at the cold bottom of the ocean, constellations of anglerfish and jellyfish would infiltrate your darkness with their own strange zodiac, illuminate your well-chosen hiding space. Look, See how they reveal the details of a world just beyond your face, reveal the details of a world just now coming into being on your own beautiful face. And this is one I wrote out of pure self-indulgence, because to be a poet is to love words and to love every aspect of them in the English language and maybe some other languages too. But this is praise for the naming of creation, which I love the idea of naming. I think it's one of the best things about being human is that we get to name other things, like that's such a huge delight. And we're still doing it. Like we haven't found everything to name. We're still finding new things to name. So that's what this poem is about. It was inspired obviously by that first part of Genesis where Adam names the animals and other creatures. And also it is an homage to the collective noun. Y'all know what collective nouns are? They're special nouns for groups of things, like a collection of flamingos is a flamboyance of flamingos. So you'll hear all sorts of those in here as well. Praise for the naming of creation. Genesis 2, verses 19 and 20. So from the soil, Yahweh God fashioned all the wild beasts and all the birds of heaven. These he brought to the man to see what he would call them. Each one was to bear the name the man would give it. Aardvark erupted from the man's mouth like a bark as something solid began to resolve out of the earth. Snout, wild eyes, brand new ears. Beings began gathering themselves as God moved his hands as a maestro with his baton. Bison in a great nodding herd, a troop of capybaras headed for the nearest hot spring, and a pack of dogs dancing in on their hind legs, wet noses alight with delight. Caressing each new creature on its head as it passed, Adam blessed them and named them. Droves of emus, an entire business of ferrets, towers of giraffes, and a cackle of hyenas all leapt and skittered and ambled and jumped from the once silent dirt. Impalas, jaguars, koalas, lemurs, and meerkats all paraded around Adam, the meerkats taking turns standing on his head to see what they could see. Each waited their turn to receive their name, that sound of what they would be. Nuthatches skirted up tree trunks, while a collection of orioles lit tree branches with gold. A scoop of pelicans split the new blue sky, and a covey of quails came gossiping out of the brush. Reindeer appeared, their antlers already enormous and adorned with creatures slower and smaller, garlands of sloths and tree frogs dangling like Christmas ornaments. A Utah prairie dog popped out of the ground, found its meerkat cousin, and both began to gesture and chatter as long-lost friends so often will banter. The long-lashed vicuña made eyes at the wildebeest, while a xanthus hummingbird glittered through the softening light. At last Adam announced yak over a shaggy patient beast, and zebra at the sight of a blaze of black and white. And Adam smiled and suspected this task of his would never really be done. Ever over the top God, once he began creating, he just could not stop. I think so. You have one more round, or you want us to finish? What do you want to do?
I've got a couple of questions that I'd love for our poets to answer for us. The first question, can you give us a glimpse into your creative process? Things like, do you have a specific ritual when writing poetry, or do you wait for inspiration to strike?
So the question was, do I have a specific process or ritual, or how does it happen? I think a little of both. I have a habit of getting up early and sitting kind of with my coffee until I become awake, and then I write just whatever comes to mind. But then also I do a lot of walking, and I think that walking is a good way to help you see the world, and it opens your mind up to images, and it's kind of one of those things where I think when your body is moving just in a regular pattern, you become open to more things from your subconscious. Somehow there's that body-mind connection. And then when it gets down to brass tacks, I go to the words themselves. So if I have to have something like a group of poems written like this one, I was trying to get so many done, I would sit down with an etymological dictionary and go through and look at specific words that catch my eye. And then I'd see, is there an image? Because images are the things that really get me going, either if I see them or if there's a specific word that has a lot of interesting images attached to it in its meaning of what it used to mean or what the history of the word was. That helps me a lot. Sit around and read dictionaries. So, and then, I go through what I've written and look at how does it sound? Does it need a form? Is there a metaphor there that might be better? Just tweaking things like that.
Well, I'm basically ritual free, but things catch my eye or interest, and there's a phrase that comes out of it or something, and then it emerges. It's a word cloud, basically, or a phrase cloud. And you can go wild with that because there's no rules. And then you start beginning to put it together and moving things around and listening for the sound and the rhythm. So it's not as random as it may feel sometimes to the audience. Even if there isn't an official structure like a sonnet or something, there is sort of an internal structure that has to arise. And then some of them I like, and some of them I go, this is okay, but, so. Mm-hmm.
What is next for you ladies? Like, are you have any upcoming events or projects or books or anything you might want to share with us?
I wish. Yes, I have literally hundreds of poems. I have potential chapbooks out the wazoo. I just kind of don't know how to get it done. I have two small ones that one is self-published and one was published by an art gallery where I had poems in conjunction with some drawings that I did. But I don't have any projects underway right now. And I really don't believe in lying around waiting for inspiration, but I have done a lot of lying around. So.
Well, let's see. So I have my chapbook that came out last year, so that was exciting. And I have a group of 48 of the poems of the praises and laments finished. So I'm trying to get that finished, fully finished, like not sort of finished, but all the way finished, and see if I can get that published. So some of those will be coming out in different journals around the internet. Yeah.
I'd like to invite our poets to share one last poem, a favorite, and one just like, I know I've just created an anxiety moment, but it'll be okay, I promise. And after they do that, I'll offer our closing words and invitations to you all. Thank you for coming. Just in case you decide to skedaddle on me, I appreciate your presence. You are beautiful people. And have we chosen? I think we're ready. All right.
My life for the last 40-some years has revolved around this place where we live in Bells Bend, the farm, and of course Tom, who got me to the farm. The first time I ever went out there was for a potluck. No surprise, we still have potlucks. And the occasion for the potluck, I knew Tom in the hospital. He was an attending physician, but I didn't know too much about where he lived or anything. The occasion for the potluck was that the koi pond was finished. Okay, so we were celebrating that. There wasn't any water in it, mind you, and no koi. There it was. So I went out there, and here was this rattle-trap old farmhouse with chunks of concrete as stepping stones across the dirt yard, and a scruffy-looking dog, and a bunch of people living in the house, in addition to Tom. And we had a great time. So on the way home, I wrote this poem and dropped it off at his office on Monday. And that was that. That's how we got together. He hunted me down after that. So he did. So this is called An Impressionist Dines on the Absence of Light on a Lily Pond. So this isn't exactly what you think of as a love poem or anything like that. It's really about the evening. An impressionist dines on the absence of light on a lily pond. Empty, the lily pond feeds our worst imagination, expands, contracts, cracks with each breath. A tumid jungle, crocodiles scaling the wall, sunrise hours away, bullfrogs rolling like timpani, honking devils in the voodoo grass. Empty, the lily pond fills with bad dreams. Convivial, we are at our most pilgrim, sitting at that table reading transients, reading shadows like tea leaves. Empty, the lily pond of Black Sahara. Crickets fuel the sirocco. Dry, we travel on, a bit of leather in a striped burnous. Near midnight, all spells off. In the fog's slow dance, this is again just any green valley. We sit on the pasture fence. The moon hums like a top. In the empty, near midnight lily pond, lilies bubble up like champagne.
All right, to end, we'll go back to the beginning. This is Praise for the Spirit of Creation, Genesis 1, chapter 1, verses 1 and 2. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was a formless void. There was a darkness over the deep, and God's Spirit hovered over the water. The heavens were shook out like a black satin sheet, earth freed at last from its tangled wrinkle and time and space. And over its waiting waters the Spirit hovered unhurriedly. It lingered perhaps as a poet, struck suddenly by the possibility of the place, how it would be itself in cloud-streaked blue and green and yet be more, an inexhaustible metaphor. Soon stanzas of continents took shape, the ocean like the white space on the page. Then a rhythm like music, like words, emerged with the sound of the waves as they found the shore for the very first time. And I wonder if that sound delighted the Spirit, who seemed to find use for it again and again. For to be human, to be alive, is to hear each breath echo that first syllable of the tide. Thank you.
And beloveds, that is Poets Corner. Thank you for coming. Go in peace, and we some church folks around here. God bless.